everybody calls me. So usually I ask my students, what do you think, can you define life? Nobody can define life, it's quite difficult. But really, what is life? It's a bit of water with energy from Miller day, but also a bit of a drop of the Holy Spirit for some of us. But we cannot live without food. And this food, it turns also, when there is a lack of food, we call it food security. And at the moment in Africa, what we believe it is important is the new vision for the agriculture in Africa. That has to have connection between the food security, the economic opportunity, and the environmental sustainability. So, but when I was invited as by our colleagues from IPSU, I went to try and get some old PowerPoints that I had for my Portuguese students, Portuguese-speaking students in Mozambique. And I found that in Portuguese we mean segurança alimentar with 4 different meanings in English. Food security, food insecurity, food safety, and nutrition security. So I'll try to be speaking just on food security. I'll mention a bit of malnutrition. I'm not going to famine and hunger because they are very broad subjects. And I'll try to present a bit on food security, a bit on food safety, and a bit on nutrition transition. Food security being the lack of quantitative and qualitative food, and food safety in relation to aspects of quality. And I put this map just to enhance. The point is not working. But here is Swaziland, very small. In Swaziland, if we were putting all the world population, 7 billion people, if we allocated 1 square meter to each person, like we are in this room, we could fit almost 3 world populations in Swaziland. And I made the accounts come there. I could fit half of the world population in Johannesburg and Pretoria together. That means we don't have a lot of people in the world. What we have, sorry? No, it's all right. We don't have, because we don't have a lot of people in the world. In fact, we don't have shortage of food. So where is the problem? The problem mainly is on distribution of food from the places where it is produced to the places where the people live. So I would like you to stay with this picture, in fact, because can I take this? But this first slide shows the prevalence of underweight among children under the age of 5, and we can see that the countries in black are the ones who have a lot of percentage of people with that underweight, mainly India. In South Africa, the average is about 15%. In Mozambique, the average of underweight people is about 25%. But all these numbers, for me, they're not real. There is no sustainable data that really gives these results. We look at the data from World Bank, from World Health Organization, and none of them are trustworthy because they have a lot of people, about 600 NGOs only in Mozambique dealing with nutrition and health, and really they are looking for their own interests. And their own interest mainly is to try and supply mainly our sub-Saharan countries with food additives, supplements, nutrients, and so on. But I go back and speak about, how can I take this out? No, you can take that. Okay. I'm going to speak a bit on undernutrition. And undernutrition is measured as stunting when it is chronic, and that means low height for age. Wasting when it is undernourished by acute results of diseases, sudden diseases, and that's low weight for height, and underweight, which is low weight for age. And these underweight can be both of a mixture of stunting and wasting. And all these categories can appear in mild, in moderate, or severe cases. There are about 22 million people that must achieve food security a year, and there's more than the past 2 decades, only 6 million have reached what we call left the prison of hunger. Also, this data is from World Bank. They do a lot of statistics, but they do statistics sometimes per country, and that they do not reflect very well the difference between regions of a country. And this is very important because at least for the case of Mozambique, that's not very correct, the data that we've been listening. In fact, the global insecure people in the world have dropped from 37% to around 17% at the moment. That means people who are undernourished. And these major reductions were achieved mainly in China, where there was an increase of 130 million people. However, in our countries, in sub-Saharan Africa, hungry people have more than doubled during this period. And each day there is 800 million people that go hungry, and from them about 170 million children under the age of 5 that go hungry, causing some 6 million deaths annually on this of children under the age of 5. But it's not only malnutrition, because malnutrition that would not exist if it existed poverty. And poverty is the main cause of malnutrition. There is many other factors that avoid malnutrition. That's why countries like Cape Verde, for example, they have sorted out the problems of malnutrition, and they don't have one single nutritionist in their country by defying poverty rates. I've crossed all these pictures here because I believe that these pictures, that what we see in international books, they are bad propaganda for Africa, because I believe that Africa is self-sufficient in food production. We have to increase productivity, indeed, but we are able to feed ourselves, and we even have probably enough to export, and we are already exporting. Again, there's several attempts, even in Mozambique, to try to establish a green revolution. We cannot have a green revolution in Mozambique, at least, or in certain countries, because we are not Brazil. We have to rely on new technologies to improve, to sort our problems and to improve our local crops. And we have a lot of local crops that can be improved and be used towards nutrition and health. And also our African farmers can potentially grow enough food that can avoid future food crisis. In fact, in relation to food availability, there's been increased dramatically amount of food that are available in our continent over the past 30 years, but we still remain below in sub-Saharan Africa, below the minimum requirements that in energy and protein, because it's the ratio between energy and protein that is really important for growth and for everything else. But poverty, there is an African proverb, poverty is slavery. And indeed, 12 countries in sub-Saharan Africa have extreme poverty rate above 60%. Your point is not good. Oh, it's good. But in 4 cases, it is even above 80%. That means there is extreme poverty, although extreme poverty is not properly also well defined. It is defined by developed countries, saying that poverty is all countries that all people that they don't earn at least $1.25 a day. It used to be $1, now it's $1.25 a day. And so we need that these figures should fall to not more than 3% of these people who have this level of income by the year only of 2030. For example, in Mozambique, it says all the papers of World Health Organization, World Bank says that malnutrition in Mozambique is 44 to 45%. And the government is pressing us, saying, why do we have all this 45 to 50% to 55% in my province where I come to north of Mozambique? And at my university, we did already several studies. I cannot put here because they are not published, they are not referred yet. But what we found, it is that malnutrition is only 6%, very far away, totally different from what is claimed of 55%. So something is going on these world population. Also, the number of malnourished children will decline only by 20% by the year 2020, although the number of food insecure people will also decline 700 million people by the year 2050. But the Millennium Goals, and there are 4 Millennium Goals that are related to nutrition. This is the main one, trying to cut hunger enough by 2015. That will not be reached for sure. We are very near 2015, and there's many experts already saying that perhaps in the year 2050. So there's many causes for this scenarios in Africa, mainly globalization, trade liberalization, technological changes, a lot of conflict resolution. There's a problem of rapid urbanization, climate changes, but mainly the change in responsibilities of key actors and stakeholders. I mean, they are not sensibilized to that this scenario needs to be changed and how to change. To change is not to find help from abroad, from developed countries like we have every day, millions of dollars coming to our university. We're just 5-year-old university, and there's every day coming from Denmark, from USA, from Australia, millions and millions of dollars offer, but they want also something else for them, and they keep half of it also. So food security is largely a domestic problem. That means each nation and each region has to tackle this problem of food security, mainly because of availability. In the north of Mozambique, we have land, non-stop land, good for agriculture, thousands and thousands of hectares. Only our university has 1,250 hectares of land, arable land, and we have very little part being produced, but then where do you send the products? There is no roads, there is no transport, there is no nothing, so nobody wants to produce. So it means about the availability is there, access is a bit more different, and utilization, also people need to be educated. They need to know what is the advantage of having a soya bean that's not transgenic to a soya bean that is imported and is transgenic. So food security is perceived by poor African countries different from trade concern as articulated by developed countries. Now I move a bit to nutrition security, which is different from food security. When people start speaking about nutrients, and nutrients there are, if you don't know, there's about more than 50 nutrients. Besides energy, there's more than 50 nutrients. So it's very difficult to try to make a balanced diet to balance 50 odd nutrients. The only way to do that is to have a diversified diet. And that is not very common in Africa. In my region in North Mozambique, people eat cassava every day, cassava the next day. In the south they eat maize, the next day they eat maize, and the next day they eat maize. Sometimes a bit of fish, sometimes a bit of eggs and chicken, and a lot of oil to give them energy, which is sheep, the oil. So, but the main concerns, and again these concerns are explored by big companies. Swiss companies produce vitamins, so they have to sell. Other big companies produce, so they say African women, African children, they are prone to vitamin A deficiency. Please, you have to buy vitamins, you have to spread vitamins, you have to do supplementation of young children. And then other companies like British companies started recently in several of our countries, Zimbabwe, Zambia, about producing sweet potato, orange pulp, saying they have a lot of vitamin A, but if you go and see the tables, they're similar to a carrot. And liver of animal, chicken liver, has 40 times more vitamin A than this sweet potato. So why should people go and import a different type of sweet potato to substitute ours, not to have? It's because they have to buy something from abroad. Or they are given the first seeds and then we are relied on the offer from them. Also in Uganda there is a banana already with 6 times more vitamin A than the normal banana. So there's other ways of sorting the problems without having to go and ask to buy outside. Same thing with iron. everybody speaks about anemia. Indeed, most of us in Africa eat not so many green vegetables and leaves that are rich in iron. And in fact, there is anemia, but anemia is not only lack of iron. There's many other problems, and we heard in our ICSU meeting that we had in Ivory Coast, there's sickle cell anemia, and there's other source of anemia. Besides the supplementation of iron of diets, it increases the susceptibility to malaria, and few people know about that. And also iodine, this is just few examples of nutrients. Iodine also, it is said that you need to have iodine in the salt, and there's big campaigns, salt, iodized, salt. But then what salt, table salt, sea salt, or mineral salt, they're all the same, there's zero iodine. So, but is that iodine very important? Yes, it is important, because they say it gives irreversible mental retardation, gives loss of IQ and so on. But if this was really true, completely true, that means that we, all Africans, we are mentally retarded, because for many years we didn't supplemented food with iodine. So there's, and also you eat 2 potatoes and you get enough iodine that is the requirements of iodine. So, but we need to sell salt prepared and refined. So for too long, there's the food needs of growing populations in Africa have been answered with solutions, different solutions that tend to ignore our culture, political, and even religious factors. So it is us, that our scientists, that have to study our solutions and try to find, not import everything from outside. I'm not going to this one. This is just to stress that the nutrition security depends on a lot of things, but today we don't have time enough for that. So what can we can do? We have to invest in human resources, and in fact, in Mozambique, we have the first, now on the 5 years ago, we started the first degree in nutrition. There was no nutritionist, not one in all the country, 25 million people, and there are ratios for that. So we need to improve production, we need to improve productivity, when we have to create employment, we have to improve infrastructures, institutes, laboratories, research, technology, transfer of technology, but especially promote good governance and also support international and national trade and macroeconomic policies. So there is a lot that we can be doing in each of these items. So the key actions to address malnutrition involves we have to increase nutrition capacity within our ministries. That's what we are doing presently in Mozambique. We try to improve education and counseling services. We try to have indeed coverage of micronutrients mainly in children, because they don't have that difference in diversity in diets, but we do have to promote diversity of diet so that we can improve intake of different nutrients. So I mentioned food security, now a bit on food safety. I was a member of EFSA, for those who don't know, it's European Food Safety Authority in Parma, which clarifies all hygiene and food quality in Europe. And as a member, I always felt that we did over-legislate. We do a lot, internationally, a lot of levels of this and that requirement. And there are requirements, international standards, that we are trying to harmonize all over the world, but sometimes we believe that we are still not ready in Africa for this harmonization of the SPS, which is sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which relates to not only bacteria, but contaminations of residues, of pesticides, of medicaments, of additives, and so on. So the main problem is that in Africa, the international standards that are made either in the United States or in Europe, they do not reflect our interests. SADC is unable to participate effectively in establishing international rules. We are not making ourselves heard on these debates in Europe or in America, so they legislate without us listening. And so they don't reflect our situation mainly, and so there is difficulties in meeting market requirements. So how to legislate if our economies are very largely informal sectors, informal markets, and large-scale informal border trade resources, and also with government problems. How can we try to implement these SPS measurements, SPS and many others, because there is the Codex Alimentarius that all world countries subscribe, but it's very difficult to implement. You know? So, should consumers in Africa have the same safety protection as consumers in developed countries? Probably yes. We have to. At least we have to start at least in the urban areas. We have to start that. But how to deal with the informal sectors? But there are informal sectors even in developed countries. If you go throughout Europe, they sell food in fairs just like they do here. But there's some sort of control.